While we're just about 2 months away from President-elect Trump's inauguration, there is a different key date 1 month before that. Federal agencies are currently set to run out of money on December 20th, meaning that current members of the House and Senate are gearing up for what could be a complex funding fight this holiday season. Democratic Congressman Brendan Boyle is on Capitol Hill. He represents Pennsylvania's 2nd Congressional District and is a ranking member of the House Budget Committee. Congressman Boyle, great to see you. It is that time of year again, and here we are talking about the budget. Last week, House Speaker Mike Johnson said that President-elect Trump's preference for how to keep the government funded will, quote, carry a lot of weight. Is that true?
Well, Mike Johnson would certainly know that better than I would in terms of how his Republican colleagues would react to what Donald Trump wants. I would point out we are currently in the new fiscal year. We have a president, it's Joe Biden. We have a Democratic majority in the Senate. And we have a Democratic minority in the House, but one that time and time again has actually been counted upon to provide the bulk of votes for any previous government funding in the previous 3 years. So the reality is we don't live in an autocracy. We live in a system of checks and balances. Congress is the first article of the Constitution, and Democrats will have at least an equal say when it comes to the funding of this fiscal year. I believe, however, we need to avoid a government shutdown. I think that sort of chaos and dysfunction, the likes of which we have seen previously when Donald Trump was president, really doesn't serve anyone any good, and in the end costs American taxpayers more money than if we avoided a government shutdown in the first place.
And are you expecting there will be another stopgap measure to avert a shutdown, or do you think that you'll be able to pass something more substantive, something more long-lasting?
Well, the fiscal year that I spoke about that we're currently in, the new one, actually began on October 1st. We have already had a couple stopgap measures. I think that it's time, and I think that we do have enough time between now and December 20th, that we finally resolve this matter once and for all. The math won't change if we just kick the can down the road for another 30 or 60 days. So that would certainly be my preference. I know there are members on both sides of the aisle who currently are working in good faith in order to deliver that sort of an agreement. And that's what I'm going to be pushing for between now and December 20th.
And Congressman, you're also a member of the bipartisan Congressional Ukraine Caucus. I wonder what your reaction is to President Biden deciding to allow Ukraine to use those U.S.-provided long-range weapons now. Is it too little too late, or do you think it could really make a difference?
It certainly could make a difference. I will tell you that I've been part of a bipartisan group of members of Congress who have been pushing the administration to allow Ukraine to use the ATACMS in a way that would be most effective in terms of protecting their freedom and their sovereignty. In addition to serving in the bipartisan Friends Ukraine Caucus, as you mentioned, I also serve as part of the U.S. delegation to the NATO Parliament. I'll be at our upcoming NATO Parliament meeting just this weekend. This is one of the most significant moments for NATO in its 75-year history. We cannot allow Russian aggression on European soil to stand, period.
And Congressman, I want to ask you about your home state. I spent a lot of time there during the campaign, and it's almost as if you knew what was coming, because years ago you started the so-called Blue Collar Caucus, and it seems that you anticipated this sort of reckoning with Democrats perhaps not understanding enough what people in your state are yearning for. So what do Democrats need to do to win back working-class voters in particular?
Yeah, well, thank you. My colleague, Mark Vesey of Texas, and I founded it exactly 8 years ago because we were already starting to see slippage among working-class Americans. Both Mark and I come from working-class backgrounds. Both he and I are the first in our respective families to go to college. And the reality is the vast majority of Americans do not have a college degree. I think that far more government policy should be geared toward them in mind. I very much regret the fact that in this election, Democrats fell further behind with working-class voters and not just working class white voters. An increasing number of Latino, Asian, and African American working class voters voted Republican, even though I genuinely believe Republican economic policy in no way benefits them whatsoever. So this is a challenge that we as Democrats have to solve, and we need to meet it head on, because in the end of the day, I do believe it is our policies that are in the best interest of working class families in this country.
Congressman Brendan Boyle, thank you so much for your time.